Setup: the nut concept. In the episode's opening, the driving idea is making your nut, which means covering the amount of money you need each month to survive. In real-world terms, it's your baseline expenses: housing, utilities, food, and other essentials. The show introduces this concept through Clyde, who explains that his personal nut is about $60 a week and that he's meeting it by running a podcast that leans heavily on controversial, divisive rhetoric. Kyle and Wendy discuss how the podcast is spreading anti-Semitism, misogyny, and other bigoted talking points. Viewers are led to believe they're talking about Cartman, given his history of outrageous statements, but it's revealed they mean Clyde. This twist positions Clyde as a new type of political grifter, someone exploiting outrage and identity politics to draw attention and generate income. Cartman overhears this and is infuriated, not by the offensive content, but because Clyde is stealing his approach and getting the recognition for it. This sets up the rivalry between the two and frames the episode's central commentary. Both economic desperation and ego can drive people into morally bankrupt ways of making money. Political grifting and media satire. Clyde's podcast is presented with deliberate visual cues that make him appear detached and soulless while delivering inflammatory lines. This mirrors real-world right-wing grifters who deliberately say provocative things to pander to a specific audience segment. The humor comes from how plainly the show depicts this as a performance for profit rather than a sincere political stance. Cartman's response is immediate. He launches his own show, modeled after the style of political commentator Charlie Kirk. The parody is precise, from the cadence of speech to the exaggerated facial expressions. Cartman's segments involve debating random college students on hot-button topics, but the students are always unprepared and easy to dismantle. This creates a satirical version of real-life debate clips where the host seeks out the least challenging opposition for an easy win. The show underlines this point with the recurring master debating joke. Cartman tells his mom he's busy master debating to these young college girls. While crude, the line functions as metaphor, depicting the process of cherry-picking weak opponents as self-gratifying performance rather than genuine engagement. It highlights how this type of content farms attention and monetization, feeding both the ego and bank account of the creator. Mackey loses his job. While Clyde and Cartman's rivalry unfolds, a second storyline begins with Mr. Mackey facing sudden unemployment. PC principal informs him that the school district is cutting unnecessary expenses due to budget reductions, and as a result, Mackey's counselor position is being eliminated. This decision frames the first major economic pressure point in the episode: losing stable work without warning. Mackey visits the bank to assess his situation, and here we see the return of Benny, a minor but fan-favorite teller from earlier seasons. Benny calculates Mackey's monthly expenses and reveals they total around $8,000, a figure that shocks Mackey. This number represents his nut, the amount he must make to maintain his current lifestyle. The scene serves as both a comedic callback and a realistic depiction of financial vulnerability. Without his job, Mackey faces a significant income gap, and Benny offers little sympathy. Instead, he casually suggests alternative employment options, planting the seed for the next narrative turn. ICE recruitment and real-world parallels. Benny's most surprising suggestion for Mackey's unemployment problem is to apply to work for ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Initially, Mackey rejects the idea, objecting on moral grounds. However, Benny explains the compensation: around $100 a year with a $50,000 signing bonus. The episode emphasizes that these numbers are not far from ICE's actual recruitment offers, highlighting the agency's high pay as a lure amid its public unpopularity. South Park lampoons ICE's real recruitment messaging by showing a parody of their official website, complete with fear-driven slogans about criminals and predators invading the country. The humor sharpens when the actual Homeland Security Twitter account, in real life, shared an image from the episode's teaser to promote recruitment, unknowingly playing into the satire. The official South Park account responded with the blunt message, "Eat a bag of," creating a real-world meta moment that blurred the line between the show's fiction and the agency's reality. The recruitment video Mackey watches exaggerates the idea that almost anyone could become an ICE officer. This is reinforced by absurd cameo appearances, such as the World of Warcraft neckbeard character from a past episode, underscoring how low the bar appears to be. The segment mocks the notion that ICE's work requires specialized skill or experience, presenting the agency as desperate to fill roles regardless of qualification. Christy Noem satire. Once Mackey is officially hired, he's required to watch an ICE orientation video featuring the organization's spokesperson. South Park's exaggerated version of South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. The show immediately leans into one of her real-life controversies, her admission in her memoir that she shot her own puppy, Cricket, for being untrainable, and killed a goat the same day. In the episode, this is pushed into running dark humor. Every time she appears, she casually kills a cute dog without breaking conversation. Her depiction is also visually absurd. Her face is shown as a stiff, overly plastic mask that repeatedly melts or falls off, only to be reattached by a team of makeup artists. This gag works on multiple levels. It's a jab at her heavily managed public image, a literalization of being the face of ICE, and a metaphor for an identity that's artificial and interchangeable. By centering Noem in the ICE storyline, South Park turns her into a symbol of the agency's cold, performative authority. She represents the willingness to use cruelty, whether symbolic or literal, as a political tool, all while maintaining a rehearsed and marketable public persona. ICE raids and over-the-top villainy. With Mackey now part of the force, ICE is shown conducting raids that escalate from aggressive to outright absurd. The first major target is a Dora the Explorer concert, where agents storm the venue and detain attendees in the middle of the show. This overblown approach frames ICE as both comically heavy-handed and oblivious to optics, disrupting a children's event under the guise of enforcement. The episode then takes the satire to its most surreal point: ICE raiding heaven itself. Agents drive directly into the afterlife to verify whether residents are legally allowed to be there, questioning people who explain they earned entry by doing good deeds and helping charities. The joke lands because it mirrors the same bureaucracy and suspicion that ICE applies in the real world, transposed into an utterly nonsensical setting where their authority should be meaningless. These sequences don't just ridicule ICE's tactics, they caricature the agency as so committed to enforcement that it extends beyond logic, morality, and even mortality. The raids serve as the clearest visual representation of South Park's view of ICE as both overreaching and absurd. Convergence at Mar-a-Lago. The two storylines merge when both Mackey and Clyde are invited to Mar-a-Lago. Clyde earns his spot by winning the Charlie Kirk Award for Young Master Debaters, a parody ceremony rewarding those who thrive on combative, self-serving political performances. His victory speech, claiming the Civil Rights Act was a mistake and insulting lesbians, underscores how empty and inflammatory the rhetoric has become. Mackey is sent as a reward for his successful ICE raids with the promise that the president will help him with his nut. The Mar-a-Lago setting is filled with layered references. Dora the Explorer is shown giving massages in a nod to the Trump-Epstein scandal implications, while the exaggerated, Saddam Hussein-inspired version of Trump from previous episodes makes another appearance. J.D. Vance is also included in a cameo, assisting Trump in an outlandish and suggestive gag with Satan, another callback to the season's earlier absurdities. This setting is intentionally chaotic, blending political satire with surreal cameos. It acts as the narrative bridge that finally places Mackey and Clyde face to face, setting up their mutual realization about the cost of chasing money over principles. Mackey and Clyde's realization. In a quieter moment amid the chaos of Mar-a-Lago, Mackey slips back into his counselor role and speaks directly to Clyde. Clyde admits that his podcast persona and inflammatory rhetoric were never driven by genuine belief. He was simply trying to make his nut by capitalizing on outrage. Mackey relates instantly, recognizing that his own decision to join ICE came from the same financial desperation, not conviction. Mackey warns that pursuing money through work you don't believe in doesn't just compromise your values, it leaves you unhappier, and paradoxically, your nut can actually grow. The show frames this as both an emotional truth and a satirical jab at lifestyle inflation. The more you earn, the more your baseline expenses can expand, locking you further into work you dislike. This exchange ties together the episode's central themes: economic pressure as a driver of questionable choices, the hollowness of performative outrage, and the personal toll of abandoning principles for profit, chaotic escape, and abrupt ending. Their shared realization sets the stage for an escape attempt. Chaos erupts when Christy Noem's face detaches completely, sending the room into disarray. Mackey, Clyde, and a now enslaved Dora the Explorer seize the moment to flee Mar-a-Lago. The sequence blends absurdist humor with a rushed sense of resolution. There's no grand showdown or dramatic closure, just frantic movement toward freedom. As they make their way out, the show drops one final surreal gag. The characters suddenly shift into a Peanuts-style scene, singing the Lulu song in unison. This tonal whiplash underlines South Park's willingness to end episodes in ways that feel abrupt, unresolved, or intentionally anticlimactic. Instead of a clear moral or follow-up on the escape, the moment freezes in an oddball celebration, leaving the audience to decide how much, if anything, was actually resolved. Do you know all the disturbing things South Park dads have done? If you want to know, then click here.